Mark, Scott Frost was kind of raving about Crosby last night, just having watched it from up above. What did he look like on film? And is there a trend now where freshmen can play on the offensive line? You had one last year. It seemed like back in the day they'd have to redshirt, gain weight, play as juniors and seniors, that type of thing.
It depends, right? The classic answer. He did some good things. He's very athletic. He's naturally explosive. He made a bunch of mistakes and did a bunch of good stuff. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But I think ideally, yeah, you're going to redshirt those guys. But as you've seen and as we've experienced, if those guys are ready to go, we're going to play them.
Is Wogan, is he still going to handle field goals going forward? We didn't see him yesterday.
Right. We'll find out. That'll be a kind of a weekly decision here. Yep.
And that would be Aiden he'd be competing with since he's handling kickoffs and PATs?
Yeah.
What did he do to force your hand in some ways during fall camp to kind of to earn that role, Aiden?
Yeah, we're going to always, play the best guy available in every positional situation for that week, for that game.
Mark, hi, it's Gary Horowitz. Just wondering, when you go from game one to
the
game
voice from
two,
God.
Is there sometimes one of the biggest jumps because, you get that first game out of the way and it's been all fall camp and then, you expect a lot of things to be better from week 1 to 2?
That's usually the trend, and we sure hope that takes place. We played 70 guys on offense and defense, which is a ton, and that doesn't include all the guys that played a little bit on special teams. And so a bunch of guys with their first either action at all or their first substantial action in a more, in a bigger role. And so those guys will all... They'll fix something, whether it's, as a receiver, we had some alignment issues just in terms of our spacing. We had some route spacing issues, had a couple communication issues on offense. Defensively, a few missed gaps. We had 3 freshman D linemen in there at one point, and 2 of them were in the wrong gap, and that leads to a big play. And so those are the kind of things that it's kind of one of those aw shucks type of moments where guys can realize they see it, they immediately fix it. And those are the kind of things that hopefully will lead to substantial exponential improvement from game to game.
Chantel, anybody else a question? Go ahead, Chantel.
All right, thanks. Sorry, I had to turn my phone off mute. Obviously, you've had the chance to look at film with Marcus. He's not in the point in his career where he's going to make leaps and bounds anymore with his play. But did you see anything in his play yesterday that you want to see market improvement in by Michigan State?
He had a couple odd plays for him. He had one ball that kind of just flubbed out of his hand. He tried to kind of run the route for the receiver, and it's hard to do that as a quarterback. Try to redirect mid pitch, and that's something that happens. And then another time he was kind of off balance, trying to throw a seam ball, and then that was another situation where our spacing wasn't very good for a couple of reasons. I thought he coached the young guys up when he was out of there and did a good job in that regard. Got a bunch of guys oriented that whether it's Royce and Charles or Darren, and some of those guys that were new. I thought he did a really good job of directing traffic.
Matt, what?
Going into the week, a lot of guys talked about tackling. Were you pleased with the way they tackled in space and going forward?
No. I think that there are a lot of reasons, going to that. We were pretty vanilla, obviously, on both sides of the ball. First game, some things, some angles, some leverage on defense that got in the way. A couple times, guys just flat out cutting it loose and running. We weren't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but we're going to certainly have to fit things a lot differently this week.
You talk about all the numbers that you guys played. How much, if at all, will those be cut back as you move forward in the schedule? How deep do you expect your rotations to be when you have 11 guys catch a pass, when you have, I think, 35 guys play on defense?
Mm-hmm.
Are those decisions that are basically made even going into last week, or can guys substantially change that impression from in game one?
Guys can definitely change it, and that's totally to be determined. I think both, obviously, in a game like that's out of hand, we're going to try to get everybody, as much as possible, get them some substantial action or some action at all. Do we anticipate that being the situation every week? No, but we obviously like it, and that's where a guy, whether it's a guy like Arion Springs or Jimmy Swain or Justin Hollins, Charles Nelson, as both their predominant side of the ball and then being a huge factor in the special teams game. Those guys all did some really good things in special teams for true freshmen.
What does it mean?
Mark, with the production you got at running back yesterday, does that really just show it doesn't matter who's starting, that maybe sometimes media, we might make too big a deal of that, and that, it's just a matter of who's playing more than who's starting?
Definitely. And so much of that will factor into, again, the opponent and what our game plan is as far as perceived strengths versus perceived weaknesses and how all that stuff fits together. We started in a one back set, and so one guy's in there. Some weeks will be in a two back set or something a little bit different, and so the actual first 11 out there, it varies from game to game.
Ryan?
Mark, what has it meant to you that Troy Hill and Dargan have made the most of the second chance, and how did they play last night?
They played pretty well. Eric Dargan, ended up being he was our defensive player of the game. Grant Thompson was our scout team defensive player of the game. Marcus was our offensive player of the game. I'm just getting this in during the beginning of this answer. Jeff Bieber, no relation, was our scout team offensive player of the game. And then Charles Nelson was our special teams player of the game. And Ivan Failhaber was our scout team player of the game. So those guys, obviously Eric did enough there to in the brief time that he was in to justify that. But those guys have had really good camps. Troy in particular has grown leaps and bounds as a cover guy and has always been a force on special teams. But really encouraged by what those guys have done, and hopefully will continue to do.
Aaron, Jason, do you have a question?
Sure. Hey, Mark, just to piggyback on Rob's question about rotations and so forth, after one game, and I know it's one game, where do you feel good about your depths at what positions, and then what positions do you still see as needing development?
Yeah, I think in the last part of that, I think development is the key word of just youth. We're pretty young in the secondary. We're pretty young at wideout. We're mixing in some guys up front on both sides of the ball that are young, and they just need to play. I think we're kind of, again, like I've said all along here, we're simultaneously excited and then developing, and so sometimes the developing is not as pretty as the excited.
Mike?
We've spoken so much about Royce and about how great of a camp he had, and then about how well he played last night. What exactly does he need to improve on before next Saturday? Everything, and again, he's a guy that at times was a little tentative, just watching him run for how he's trained and how he's played in camp, and that's the guy's first college football game. That's 100% natural. The same with a guy like Tyrell Crosby or Jimmy Swain on defense, or some of the front guys on that played as true freshmen on the defensive line, is now, they kind of feel their way through it a little bit, and they see that, okay, it's okay to get hit. This is just like I've, done many times. The guy I'm against is a little bit bigger and a little bit faster than I'm used to. But just to cut it loose is something that will come with experience. Did he have any of those little freshman moments that stick out to you from last night? He was just a little bit more tentative than he's been, and again, that happens for a guy that hasn't played in a college football game before, and his tentative is pretty good, and so once he cuts it loose, we're really excited about that guy. Great kid, hard worker, and fun to be around.
Aaron, Jason, Gary.
I'm okay.
Okay, go ahead.
On the topic of development, does it almost help in the fact that then the Michigan State game is week 2 rather than, say, a week 1 matchup against a team like that?
Yeah, I think it's however you manage it. I think in the off season, a lot of people like that opener to be the quote unquote marquee game, because then you're going to have a better off season. There's other people that say, boy, we wish we played exhibition games like the NFL and treat treat a game in some form or fashion that way. And I think whatever your schedule is, that's the answer. However, whatever game one is, we're gonna prepare with the right frame of mind, which I thought our guys handled that okay. I thought there was a little lull when we were up 21-3, which again is human nature, and we're constantly battling human nature.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Kickoff coverage, sometimes I wasn't sure how much they were getting some pretty good field position at times. I wasn't sure if that was just rotational, a lot of young guys getting in there, or something you cleaned up.
Both. We had a couple kick location issues, a couple of coverage issues. Had a few touchbacks as well. And anytime you've got the combination of a lot of kicks and then a lot of new guys, there's going to be a few yards here and there. But we had a couple just misfits and rallied to the ball.
Go ahead, Rob.
I get a Michigan State question, not pertaining to the matchup just yet, but just how it fits kind of in scheduling. I mean, when you schedule a game like this a few years back, do you want it to be another top 10 team? I mean, given how tough the Pac-12 is, I know you guys want kind of a marquee non-conference game, but do you want it to be this marquee?
Hey, we love to compete, and this is a great program, very well coached in every phase. They've got marquee players in every phase, and we'll certainly find out where we are, and more importantly, where we're going. I think that anytime you get to play a game like this, if there's not a little edge to your preparation, we have a problem. And our guys already of the right frame of mind immediately after there was no final gun, but after the final zeros went last night, we redirected, and so we'll be excited to compete. And they played great in every phase in their opener, and excited to get back out in front of the Autzen fans, and we'll need them as well, getting ready for these guys.
Mike?
What did you think of Rodney and Derek's performance on the field, on the sideline last night?
Mixed. I thought Rodney did some really good things in special teams, had a couple opportunities to make plays. We're nitpicking here. And then the same with Derek. He was good. Did a great job on the sideline coaching up the young guys when they were in there. And those guys had to flip roles there, whether it's Marcus on offense and Hronis and those guys, when they're out the second half of staying dialed in and 100% focused into it and coaching up the young guys. And so that was encouraging. And hopefully that's a situation that we can repeat somewhere down the road.
Give me the question, Andrew.
Obviously, these two teams, your first two opponents, far different teams, quality and everything and level, but do they give you any kind of looks that you thought maybe mimic at all? Maybe at Michigan State, you could try out some things that you maybe can come into play this week?
Much more so from an offensive standpoint and merely from formations. When you're talking about their similarities probably end there. I thought their quarterback was a really good player, and it's very unfortunate that he ended up getting banged up. But I think Connor Cook is a man, and he's a great football player. Tough guy, making plays with his arm and his feet. And they, I think the similarities are end there. As far as the formations and that's no disrespect to South Dakota. I thought they played really well and competed to the end.